warm welcome to our entertainer, Cathy Schwartz.
No matter where I go, no matter what kind of program I'm going to do, no matter what kind of audience I'm going to have, I always start my programs either singing, ringing, saying, or playing, Jesus loves me. And yes, I do have my shoes off. I need roller skates up here. Shoes just get in the way. So you don't have to smell them because you're far enough away. All right. So I always start doing Jesus loves me because I always knew very early in my life that Jesus did love me very, very much. Not only was I blessed to be born into a home where mom and dad loved each other and did for 60 years, but also into a home where mom and dad loved and served the Lord for those 60 years. So I have to tell you this up front because it's going to explain my rather obnoxious personality. I'm a Southern Baptist preacher's child. Some of you knew that. I know now you're probably preacher's children in your past are running through your heads and you're thinking, oh no, not one of those. Oh yes, one of those. I've never done anything illegal, immoral, or unethical, but boy did I have fun. I still have fun. Preachers in my past typically will run from me because they're never sure exactly what I might do or say. It just kind of comes flying out of my mouth and like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have done that. But anyway, just have a lot of fun. So yeah, I've been going to church since 9 months before I was born, all right? Y'all are way too quiet. That was funny. Man, you gotta loosen up now a little bit, all right? Every time the door was open, we were there. We were always the first ones there. We were always the last ones to leave, and I hated that. And I thought, you know what, I am not gonna marry a preacher. Well, guess what? I married the sound man of a very large church, which means we are at the church long before the pastor ever decides to grace us with his presence. Then what are we doing when church is over and we're trying to get out the door to go to S&S for lunch or whatever, and everybody's getting in front of me in the line at the cafeteria. We're buttoning up microphones, we're turning off monitors, we're doing all that blah stuff. So I guess I'm always just destined to be at church early and late, right? But when my dad would get called to a church as their pastor, they got an incredible package deal. They got the preacher, they got the organist, because my mother majored in organ at Furman. From the time I was 14, they had a piano player. Then I got 2 sisters and a brother that are soprano, alto, and tenor. And we used to kid Daddy and say, it's not you they want. It's all those musicians that they desperately need. You're just a small little part of the package, so I don't think it's all about you. But yeah, my dad retired from, his last church was the Morningside Baptist Church in Spartanburg, so it was nice there for their last few years of life to be that close to us. So I've been married for 42 years to my high school sweetheart. His name is Jay. And Jay and I met when I was 16 and he was 10 months younger. He was 15. We met at the Piggly Wiggly grocery store that was across from the VA hospital in Columbia, South Carolina. It was not love at first sight. But he was determined to get my attention. I was a cashier and he was a bag boy. And so he would this was before the days of paper and plastic. So he took 2 paper sacks in each hand, and behind my back, without me knowing it, popped them all at the same time to try to impress me with his massive strength. Well, it made me mad, but it did get my attention. And 5 years later, we were married. But you're probably wondering, okay, well, why do you have a Piggly Wiggly shirt? Well, I'm born on Valentine's Day, and that makes me 2 things. That makes me a chocoholic, and it makes me an incredible romantic. And one year it was time for Jay's birthday, which is in December. And I thought, what could I get him that would show him that I had put thought and feeling into my gift? And I saw this in a catalog and I went, this would be perfect. Because it talks about our humble beginnings and I just knew he'd be thrilled. So I wrapped it up and I gave Jay the package and watched with great anticipation as he opened the package and he looked at the shirt. And he looked at me and he said, do you really think I'm gonna wear that? And through gritted teeth I said, yes, dear, when I paid $24.95 for it, the thought had occurred to me. He said, tell you what, Cathy, he said, I feel led to donate it to your ministry. So it has never been on anybody's body. There it is, all right. So yes, that's Jay. And I do have some pictures, and I know some of you are far away, so afterwards, if you want to come gaze closer, you can. But I want to introduce my family real quick, because y'all knew them when they were really little things. This is our daughter, Sally, and her husband, David. Sally and David met their first year at Clemson. And Sally is really the musician in our family. Sally can flat play circles around me. She had 10 years of piano. I had about, 7 or 8 months of piano, and that was it. Sally is a classical pianist, and I'm a Southern Gospel honky-tonk pianist. We can't really do what each other does, but we like to listen to one another. But she and David live right outside of Hendersonville in the little town of Fletcher as you go up the interstate. You know, you have Hendersonville, Fletcher, Arden, Asheville. They're in Fletcher, and they're members at Biltmore Baptist Church there, where they are very involved in all sorts of stuff there. So Sally is a speech pathologist at a little hospital there, and David works for Duke Energy. And we're really glad they live close, because these little things right here go with them everywhere they go. So these are our 4 grand youngins. We have Abigail, who is 10, and Abigail is a budding pianist as well. And then we have Madeline, who is 8. And Madeline plays the violin. She said, I do not want to be compared with Abigail, so I will do the violin. So she's doing the violin. And then Naomi, who is 6, she says, someone has to sing. So Naomi sings. And Gideon, the only thing he plays is with trucks. We can't get him interested in anything music yet. He is 4 years old. So that's him. So we're glad they live nice and close to us. And then let me get the other one here. This is our son, Greg, and his wife, Chelsea. Greg and Chelsea, up until last year, lived in Florence. They've been married 4 years. They met in Florence, which is where Chelsea was from. And summer a year ago, Greg was wooed by a company to come to Asheville, of all places. So Greg and Chelsea now live 5 minutes from Sally and Greg, which is just such a blessing for Jay and me. We can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone when we come up there now. Chelsea is a nurse at a little hospital, and Greg has the greatest job. Greg is so ADD. Greg cannot sit at a desk, and God, of course, knows that. And so Greg works for a company called Stryker. I said I wasn't going to say that, and I said it, didn't I, Ellen? Greg works for an orthopedic group that whenever somebody's having a knee replacement, hip replacement, something like that, he's got to have all the stuff that the doctor is going to need in the surgery. And so Greg's in there in surgeries every single day at, 10 or so hospitals in the Asheville area. And he comes out with lots of stories about what goes on in those operating rooms. You know, it's cold in there, they turn the music way up, there's all this crazy stuff going on. I'm like, you're giving me a little too much information. But anyway, Greg and Chelsea are expecting their first baby, which is going to be a little boy. And they are due the end of January, but I want you to pray, because their little boy's name is Ethan. And Ethan, we found out about 8 weeks ago, has a heart defect. And I'm not really sure how all that's going to pan out. We do know that Chelsea will have to have him at MUSC. But I'm praying really hard that God, who is the miracle worker, who is the healer, who is the great physician, will heal Ethan before he's born. But if he doesn't, I'm going to praise him in the good times, and I'm going to praise him in the hard times, because I know God has a plan for all of that. But I would just really covet your prayers if you would pray for Ethan whenever you might think about this crazy Dale lady up here. I'd appreciate that. Enough about me. I'm here today because of the gifts and talents Jesus Christ has given me. And I want you to know, when I was getting ready to come today, I was praying for each one of you. I said, God, I don't know who all's going to be there today, but you do. I don't know what's going on in their lives, but you do. So just get me out of the way, because I can do nothing without Christ who gives me strength. And my prayer is that something that is said or something that is played will draw you into a closer relationship with Christ. And I want to start by reading something that just kind of pulls it all together for me. And I know some of you have heard this before, but it definitely bears repeating. Here's a man who was born of Jewish parents, the child of a peasant woman. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never owned a home. He never had a family. He never went to college. He never put foot inside of a big city. He never traveled 200 miles from the place he was born. He never did one of the things that usually accompany greatness. He had no credentials but himself. And while he was still a young man, the tide of popular opinion turned against him, and his friends ran away, and one of them denied him. And he was nailed to a cross between 2 thieves. And And his executioners gambled for the only piece of property he had on earth, and that was his coat. And when he was dead, he was taken down and laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. But now 20 centuries have come and gone, and he is the centerpiece of the human race. And I'm far within the mark when I say that all the armies that ever marched, all the navies that were ever built, have not affected the life of man upon earth as powerfully as has that one solitary life. This is beneath the cross of Jesus. And aren't we glad that Jesus did pay it all? Absolutely. Thank you. But you know what? We don't serve a Savior who stayed in the grave. We serve a Savior who rose again, who's coming back to get us. And this next one starts with, "Come thou long expected Jesus." bells by yourself, number one, is insane. You know, when I played in bell choirs, which I did here, if I would make a mistake, I would just look at my neighbor and think it was them that made the mistake, you know, making everybody think that. But no. When you're by yourself, there's no one to look at. It's also an aerobic activity. You think I'd just be skin and bones up here, don't you, running around this table? Well, I do have two skinny parts on me, thank you very much. My fingers and my wrist. But that doesn't really impress my husband one bit. See, the wonderful thing about my ministry is most of my programs have a delicious meal attached to them. And you know what? If I don't have to cook it or clean up after it, I'm eating it. That's just the way it goes. Mother always told me growing up, she said, Cathy, no matter what you do in life, be a well-rounded person. Yeah, I'm just doing what Mom says, yes. Some of you out there might also wonder, well, why don't you look at us when you're ringing your bells? Well, let me tell you, 3 reasons. Number one, there is no music up here. So I've had to memorize everything I play, and that's about, I don't know, 45 or 50 songs in my repertoire. So I always have to stay focused on the song that I'm playing so that I don't start venturing off into some other songs. I'm always have to stay focused on that. Secondly, as I'm ringing a bell, I'm already thinking about the next one. Because if it's on this side or this side, the hands got to get freed up so I can grab the bell. But the most important thing about ringing bells by yourself, and what I told my precious children on a day-to-day basis when they lived at home, was this. Put it back where you got it. They had a hard time with that with their stuff. Well, y'all, with bells, if I don't put it back where I got it, I'm going to be in a mess. These bells are laid out just like the notes on the piano. And that's me playing the piano back here. And when I'm playing the piano, I don't have to worry about my notes moving. They pretty much stay in the same spot. But with bells, that's a real problem. You are my, 1100 something program. Let me tell you some things that have happened at previous programs. And evidently, Jay, this table must have gotten the memo because nobody's sitting here. Because I have thrown them off the table before. Not on purpose, unless you start dozing. So Barry, I'll throw it at you if you start dozing. So yeah, I look like I'm all in control and I lose my grip and it just sails right on out. So today, thankfully, that won't happen, hopefully. So I've thrown them off the table, I've hit them like this, I've gotten so twisted I couldn't get untwisted before I needed a bell. I've dropped them back here, I've forgotten a song that I've played 500 times right in the middle. You're probably thinking, what's gonna happen today? Well, you know what? I don't care. Have I told you up to this point that I'm perfect? No, if I mess up, I just mess up. I mean, we're just gonna make a joke out of it and go. I mean, not worried about it. I had to play for a funeral of all things over the weekend, and I was telling somebody afterwards, I said, oh my goodness, that was so hard because if I mess up, I can't make a joke about it, you know? But thankfully, I didn't mess up that day. But if I mess up today, I can joke, you know? Yeah, I like that one. I got somebody back there listening. I like that one. All right, now the beautiful thing about being up here in front of you is every now and then I like to bring somebody up to make a fool out of them. And Skeet still has nightmares about it, the last time I brought him up. So I told Skeet I would not do that again this year, but I'm thinking, who should I call up here this time? And I was asking around, and this name just kind of kept floating to the top, and so, Steve Bridges. Come on, Steve, come on. Y'all give a hand, come on. Oh yeah, Beth, make sure, yeah, this is gonna be good. You gotta make sure. That phone I told you to turn off, turn that thing back on. Okay, right here. You got a spot, lady. All right, now, even though Steve's pretty, we're gonna make him look even prettier. I'll put something on him. I'm not gonna tell him what it is. No. All right. No, you don't need your glasses. What's that say? Honorary dingling. Honorary dingling. Yeah, that's what you are. That's what you are, buddy. And you see, my gloves are bored. Oh, I got you. But you know how Jay and I love Piggly Wiggly, pigs, all that. So I have a pink dancing pig glove. I'll put that on your right hand. Now, go like that so they can see it dancing. Yes, isn't that cute? All right. So now, this is your bell right here. Now, you can't touch anything else. This is my space. This is your space, but that's still really only your bell. Don't touch nothing else, all right? And I want you to give us your best Steve in front of Walmart Salvation Army impression. Okay, that's good. All right. Now, so I'm gonna play You Are My Sunshine. And that note should go with basically everything I'm playing, all right? But I don't want you to stay with me like you are my, go however the Holy Spirit leads you. Just stay in your space, because I'm gonna be running up and down this road. So we're gonna play it through one time, and then I want y'all to sing it with us, okay? move over here. By the way, I can't tell you how special it is for me to be back in this room with so many people that I know and love and who were with me when I started this ministry in 1993, but were also helped pay for these bells when they came in 1995. I just truly love you all so much and so appreciated the encouragement and support that you've given me all through these years. So it's very special for Jamie to be back here today. Now this one right here is the hammer, like a hammer and nails, hammered dulcimer. My sweet husband had this built for me as a surprise one year for my birthday, and I was thrilled to get it, but it meant I had to learn how to play it. Hardest instrument I have ever tried to play. I don't know the notes, could not learn it by the notes, so I just went and got me some CDs of other people playing the hammered dulcimer, and I'm just basically doing what they're doing. I don't know if it's right or not, but I dare any of you to come up here and tell me that I'm doing it wrong, because then I'm going to sit down and let you try. But this instrument dates back over 4,000 years. It's actually mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Daniel chapter 3, verse 15. There's a list of instruments in that verse that old King Nebuchadnezzar wanted played for him. And in some translations it's called a zither, and in some translations it's called a dulcimer. And I just love the fact that if it dates back over 4,000 years, then Jesus himself probably sat around listening to somebody play the hammered dulcimer, who knows. It's also the predecessor to the piano. You're probably thinking, that does not look like a piano. Well, what does the piano look like in the back? You got the strings, you got the little hammers hitting those strings, right? So I want to do a couple of songs for you on here. And if you recognize anything I play, you're welcome to sing along. If you can't sing, it might bother your neighbor, but we don't really care. You sing anyway. And I want to tell you again, because I'm in the presence of greatness right now, the background music that I have here, we recorded it over 20 years ago, and Barry Brown himself is the guitar player, and Jim Clark, who was a member here at that time, is the mandolin player, and then Dan Miley was the upright bass. And so I recorded them so that I'd always have me a bluegrass band everywhere I went. So see if you recognize this person. This person's not bluegrass, though. This person's a hymn arrangement. Bob went there also, yeah, but I was in love and I had to transfer back to Columbia to finish because I wanted to be close to Mr. Schwartz there. But while I was at Mars Hill, I fell in love with bluegrass, so I got to play a bluegrass song. So what is the song about a flower that Maybelle Carter made famous? Wildwood flower. I'm glad you're smart. I asked an audience that recently, and this man in the back stood up and yelled out, "Yellow Rose of Texas!" I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give you a point because that is about a flower, but you are so right. This starts off with wildwood flower. Those that you have seen me, who has never seen me do this before? A few. All right, good. Y'all are in for a surprise once you know this. You other ones know that every now and then I might bring some other kind of instrument that you can't see at the moment. I will play this one in a minute, but I like to bring these other instruments with me. Let me find the first one. There it is. Y'all remember this one? Now, Skeet, it's not an oil can, it's a pork and bean can. He said, "You bring that oil can with you?" I said, "Well, I think you'll remember it's the pork and bean can." Yeah, one of my former pastors, every time I would play this in his midst, he would stand up in the back and he would say, "Before you play, tell them that that's your instrument that is powered by gas." Yeah, I just ignored him. So yeah, this is my canjo, not a banjo, but a canjo. In fact, Jay, would you come up here and hold this for me, since I can't do both? He doesn't like, Jay is not a stage person. Jay is the behind-the-scenes sound guy, but we're going to get him up anyway. You're doing sound, that's right. That's right, think about that. He is doing sound. You hear back there all right? So let's do one now. Don't ever tell me you can't play no instrument. It's only got one string, guys. I can teach you in 5 minutes how to play this, all right? So let's do, how about Home on the Range? That sound, Home on the Range, all right, okay. Kind of brings a tear to your eye. I see you, Woody. I see a tear. She's out 10 minutes, great. remembered, I'm afraid, for this next instrument. Let me pull it out. You who have not seen it, it has to stay in a bag. All right, we get it out. Now, the top looks like the other one, but the bottom is a little different. Yeah. Oh, honey, there's some roll of toilet paper. Did you put that in there? It looks clean. All right, all right. I got to tell you, I did a lot of visitation, and I walked into Greer Hospital recently. This man behind the counter, as you walk in where the little guest visitation place is, he went, oh, there's the lady that plays the toilet. And this lady was sitting next to him, and I looked at the person I was with. I said, can you just imagine what's going through her head? You hold a toilet and play that? What? No, this is my, not canjo, but my panjo. Panjo as in, yes. So I bet you that had never seen me before, probably never dreamed that you were going to come up here and see somebody play a bedpan, did you? It happens, okay. All right, but now my dilemma is, what do you play when you're holding a bedpan? And you know, being a preacher's child, the first thing I did was I went to the hymn book. And I looked at hymns and I saw, Fill My Cup, Lord, and I probably shouldn't do that, or There Should Be Showers of Blessing, So I thought, you know what, I think I'm just going to write a couple. There you realize I'm also a writer-composer. Awesome. Yeah, so I've written 2 songs. So what I need from you now is, do you want me to do song number 1 or song number 2? That's a question. 2, I heard 2. All right. Now, I'm not a solo singer, I'm a solo ringer. But for the sake of a laugh, I'll do about anything. So here we go. All right. Excuse me. All right, here we go. This is my bedpan, my only bedpan. He comes in handy if I'm stuck in bed. He'll never hurt folks when I might need it. So please don't take my bedpan away. That's out too. That's enough. Sorry about that. You know what? We don't laugh enough in this world. My life verse is Proverbs 17:22 that says, a joyful heart doeth good like a medicine. And I try to look at everything in my life where there's good, bad, happy, sad. I still try to look at it with joy and with humor. Because you know what? If we Christians go around like my daddy used to say, being able to drink buttermilk out of a churn, if we go around with these long faces, why would anybody want to be a Christian? We've got to be joyful in all that we do. Now, I'm real excited to play this because Mr. Dickard over there is the one that made this for me. This is actually the second one that he's made. This is a mountain dulcimer, also known as a Appalachian dulcimer, also known as a lap, L-A-P, lap dulcimer. And years ago, Bill, let's see, I don't know how long it must have been now, but I knew that Bill played and had these dulcimers. And this was when I was working with the senior adult choir here. And we were going to sing somewhere. And I said, Bill, why don't you bring your dulcimer? Oh, no, I can't. I'm not going to do that. He said, I got a second one. I said, well, why don't you teach me how to play the second one, and then we can do duets. And so that's what we did. Gosh, Bill, how many years did we do that? For many, many years. But I tore up the first one he gave because I was so rough with it. So I begged him, many years ago, to make me a second one. So the first one is hanging on the wall in my music room. So this is the one that I travel with. But Bill, you do such a beautiful job with that. You really do. You still got it, buddy. Even though you won't come here and play with it, you still got it. All right, all right. So I want to do a couple for you on here. And these are sing-alongs. If you don't sing, they're going to become instrumentals, okay? So let's do, how about Do Lord? I got a home in glory land at what? All right, here we go. Get that. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, so Bill, come here and help me, would you? Now what's funny is I checked this right before we started. So who came up here and sabotaged this, huh? Here we go, now that's better, here we go. This is our note. I got a glory land that outshines the sun. I got a holy glory land that outshines the sun. I got a holy glory land that outshines the sun. The way beyond the Lord, the way 12, and my mother had been sick for 2.5 years and was homebound. Daddy had done all these interims and stuff, but he stopped everything so that he could take care of Mom and keep her at home. And so for 2.5 years, she struggled, but they were able to keep her home. And on mine and Jay's 35th wedding anniversary, which was June the 3rd, 2012, Mother passed away. We were ready to let her go. She was struggling, she was suffering, she was ready to go. Well, after that, Daddy jumped back into life. He didn't take a pill. He walked 3 miles a day. His church rehired him to do all of their homebound visitation. And there were about 70 or so folks that were homebound at the church, and Daddy promised them that he would visit them once a month. All 7 people, and 7 of them were here in Greenville. And so when he would come to Greenville, I'd get to chauffeur him around and all, which was really, really special. But 82 days after Mother passed away, Daddy had a massive heart attack, and he was gone before he hit the floor. Now that rocked my world. I was prepared with Mother, but Daddy, we of course didn't see it coming, and I was really like, God, what are you doing here? Why would you do that? And I was really struggling back and forth some. But God really got my attention and helped me realize that, you know what, your mom and daddy were married 60 years. They had such a full career of spreading God's love to everybody, and they wanted to be together. Daddy was very much, he had a picture of Mother in every single room, had the bulletin from her funeral in every single room of his house in Spartanburg. So everywhere he went, he would see her picture. So he was really missing her. So we were happy that they had joined together again. They were reunited. But ever since that day, that year, I have really been focusing on the word legacy, on the incredible legacy that Mom and Dad left us 4 kids, on the legacy that I'm leaving, Jay and I are leaving our children, our grandchildren, the people in our sphere of influence. Think about that in your life. You're still here for a reason. You might be saying, oh, what am I good for anymore? As long as you're still alive, you've got an opportunity to really leave a strong Christ-centered legacy for the people that are in your path. And Mom and Dad left us a legacy of love of the Lord. There was never any doubt that they loved and served God on a day-to-day basis. Secondly, a love of music. All 4 of us kids, none of us really had any kind of lessons to amount to anything, but we are all involved in some type of music, a lot of church music today because of that. Mama used to say, well, when I was pregnant with you, I was sitting at the organ bench the majority of that time, so you just kind of got it all through osmosis is what it really was. So we just know enough to be dangerous. People will say, well, where did you major in music? And I'm like, I majored in psychology so that I could convince you that I know music. That's what I'm doing today. How am I doing? All right. So love of God, love of music, and then thirdly, an unconditional love for others. I can't tell you how many times growing up that we'd be sitting at the table waiting on Daddy to come home, and we'd hear him coming in, and we'd hear somebody shuffling in with him. It was somebody he picked up off the street that was down on their luck, and Mama wouldn't say a thing. She'd just put another plate at the table, and that person would sit there and eat with us. And that was really a powerful testimony to me of the love of God, the way that God loves all of us. We're all just really 2 or 3 really bad decisions away of being in a situation like that ourselves. But one thing that Daddy said that has really stuck with me all these years, he always said, Cathy, look for witnessing opportunities in your day-to-day life. And if witnessing was only opening the Bible and knowing what verses to go to, in what order, and what to say, that really kind of intimidates me. But the older I get, the more I realize that witnessing really is more about how I react in a certain situation. Or do I meet a need that God puts in my path? Whatever, am I trying to live out day to day the joy of the Lord, like I was just talking about? And one thing Jay and I do now that we are empty nesters, and Jay likes to say that, yeah, Cathy's got a double oven and she stores her Christmas sweaters in there. And I would, but it's really too dirty to put my Christmas sweaters in there, but who knows one of these days. But we live very close to Woodruff Road, to the infamous Woodruff Road. And so anytime we're usually eating out is somewhere on Woodruff Road. And when we eat out, the first thing we do when the waiter or the waitress comes to our table to take our drink order is we look them square in the eyes and we say, you know what, in just a minute, we're going to have a blessing for our meal. Is there something that we can pray for you for? We've been doing this over 10 years now, and I can count on one hand the times they've said no. Now, a lot of times it will catch them off guard because they're not expecting that. But it always opens a very non-threatening door to be able to witness to them as much as they would allow. And so I want to share one story with you, and we'll play one more song, and then we're going to get out of here. So we were at Cracker Barrel one night, and the waitress came over, and her name was Michelle. They have their names on their aprons. And so we asked Michelle about praying for her, and she was a little flippant. She said, well, yeah, pray for my finances. I'm struggling with my finances. And sometimes we grabbed our hands and prayed right then, but that particular night, for whatever reason, we didn't feel led to do that. So when we had our blessing, of course, we prayed for Michelle. And then all during the meal, she was coming over and refilling our drinks and stuff, and we got to know her a little bit better. Well, when the meal was over, Jay's one of these that when he gets his hands on a $100 bill, he puts it in his wallet until the Holy Spirit tells him to give it to somebody. And he said, I think we need to give this to Michelle. He said, but Cathy, I don't want to leave it on the table. He said, I'm going to go pay. You take that $100 bill and you wad it up so she can't really tell what it is. And go put it in her hand, and then I'll meet you at the car. So I said, all right. So he takes off to pay, and I see her coming out of the kitchen. And I walk over there, and I give her a big old hug, and I just thank her so much for sharing with us. And I said, Michelle, I want you to know that we're going to continue to be praying for you. And here's just a little something to let you know that God loves you, and he knows right where you are. And I closed her hand around it, and I took off with the car. I can still hear her in my mind's eye, running after me, crying her eyes out, yelling out, how did you know? How did you know? And I looked at her and I said, know what? She said, Cathy, they were going to repossess my car tomorrow if I didn't come up with $100. And I just looked up at heaven and I said, oh God, thank you so much that you let us be a part of this miracle in her life. Thank you that we listened. How many times does the Holy Spirit tap us on the shoulder and encouraging us to call somebody or go out to see somebody or do something that maybe is out of our comfort zone and we rationalize it away? Don't do that, because if you feel the Holy Spirit pushing you or leading you to talk to somebody or do something for somebody, do it. You might be the only hands and feet that he has at that moment to reach out and really, really make a difference in somebody's life. You know, as Christians, we have got to be God's hands and feet in a world that is in desperate need, would you not agree, of the hope and the joy and the peace and the love that can only come from a relationship with Christ. So we serve a great God, and that's going to be my challenge to you today, is to look at the people that God puts in your path from now on a little bit different and say, God, how do you want me to reach out to them and share how great you are with them? I'm going to close with How Great Thou Art, and I'm going to play it through one time, and then I'm going to ask you to sing the chorus with me the second time. The last spot. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Think about those words. Now let's
We don't see these people every Sunday as we worship, but they're still in our hearts.
Oh, that's sweet. Yes, it's like you're in our hearts.
So we love these people, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Even though I made a fool out of you, you're still being sweet to me. I can't believe it.